Welcome everyone to Carb Addict, now Carnivore. And I am so happy today to introduce you to Deepa Chauhan Patel, right?
hmm
I met Deepa on the Quit Sugar Summit. We were both speakers there, and I wanted to bring her in and just ask you, Deepa, to tell us your story. How did you get involved in this conversation about sugar addiction and so forth?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing and for having me on here. So, my name is Deepa, and I am a co founder of the Living Proof Institute, which is a functional and lifestyle medicine movement. Our mission statement is that the doctor of the future is the patient, and that nothing can fix your body better than it can fix itself. So, we've been in the space for over 15 years. And I started my career as a pharmacist and working more in the conventional system. And I worked in the oncology department, and I saw many people's lives taken by cancer, usually many young people. And I saw that lifestyle and nutrition was never really discussed with these clients. And at that time, my husband was getting into functional medicine, learning about it at that time, and it kind of piqued my interest. But of course, I had just pretty much graduated school, and I was, in the throes of the pharmacy world, and not really ready to give up my career in pharmacy just yet because I didn't really know too much. And, of course, there's an emotional aspect of investing all this time and money into your degree and then just throwing it away. So it wasn't really until I had my own story with my own health. I had a wonderful, healthy pregnancy, but during my labor and delivery with my son, I had to have three surgeries. I had to have a hysterectomy, a C-section, I had a small bowel obstruction, so I had to have abdominal surgery, and I literally almost lost my life. And I used, with my husband's coaching and, recommendations, I used the power of lifestyle and nutrition to really get me back on my 2 feet and heal from those surgeries so that I could be there for my son. And so that's why I really believe in living a healthy lifestyle because I've seen a lot throughout my different career paths, and I've had my own personal journey, and that's kind of what's gotten me into the world of wellness and nutrition and lifestyle.
What a powerful story.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, yes. And positioned so well to know a lot of things
hmm
about what this is all about. My brother is a pharmacist, and so is my nephew. Come from a medical family.
Okay.
Two uncles were doctors, one a specialist. So yeah, and their stories that they tell, to me were horrific. They thought it was normal life, but to me it was horrific. So when you are thinking about this lifestyle, what is your focus? I mean, when people think lifestyle, they think diet, exercise.
hmm
How do you approach it?
Yeah, so one of the things that we say when we describe what we do is that we make things embarrassingly simple because we find that most people have strayed away from doing the fundamentals and basics when it comes to living a healthy life. Few years ago in 2018, myself, my husband, and my son, we went to India, and we noticed that a lot of the poor people were actually practicing what we preach, right? They're outside in the sun all day, they're in community because they live, in big groups with each other. They're eating natural whole foods because they can't afford to go buy the packaged and processed foods, and they're laughing and they're happy and they're exercising a lot because many of them, are working outside to earn a buck. And they're pretty much practicing what we preach when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle. And so, with our modern day societies, we found that a lot of people have strayed away from those basic practices, right? We live indoors primarily. We hardly get outside. We hardly get any sunshine. We don't breathe properly, right? So breathing and breath work is a big focus of our work because that really helps to regulate your nervous system, which then is going to help you make better decisions, right? Um, so when it comes to health and lifestyle, for us, it's really keeping things simple and focusing on the basics and foundations that so many people have strayed away from, right? Even when it comes to sleep, when we were in India, people sleep outside, they're in complete darkness, right? Whereas, in our modern day societies, we're on screens till 10, 11, 12 at night and getting all this artificial blue light, which can wreak havoc on our sleep and therefore, alters our hunger and appetite hormones. And usually we end up making poorer decisions the next day when it comes to our food, right, leading to cravings and addictions and sugar cravings as well. So really, the basics, I know it sounds so simple, but it really can go a long way, and we find most people are not doing those basics.
Yes, I lived in the Caribbean for 14 years, and I noticed the same thing, that the people who were very poor and lived close to the land, they were strong and they
Mm-hmm.
hardly ever got sick. They were happy and they laughed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing to watch them in the benefits. We had to do a lot of that too because we lived in the village. Really weren't a lot of options, for other things. But I noticed such a difference when we came back to the US and started
Mm-hmm.
to live here. Everybody was feeling worse, and I
Mm-hmm.
put on quite a bit of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't figure out why because I didn't think the diet was that much different. I was cooking the same foods, but I think that what we see as healthy stuff in the grocery store isn't necessarily the same as what we were getting over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the food quality is so much different, right? We went to Italy this past summer, and the food quality is just completely different from what it is here in North America, which makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Glyphosate is banned in Europe, whereas in the US and Canada, they use glyphosate to increase yield when it comes to wheat. And that's going to wreak havoc on your gut microbiome and so many other processes that take place in your body, right, which is going to cause things like weight gain, right, and inflammation and a whole bunch of other things. Hormonal imbalances then is a ripple effect from imbalanced gut microbiome as well. So it's just unfortunate that things are this way in this modern day world that we live in. And that's why we really like to have people return back to those basics, because health doesn't have to be complicated, right? Our bodies are one of the most intelligent things on this entire planet and this entire universe. And unfortunately, we just haven't been taught how to use our body.
Yes, yes. I was astounded that my body came right up to feeling good in 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
after I stopped. Of course, I'm carnivore,
Mm-hmm.
and so that means no grains at all, no
Mm-hmm.
vegetables, no starch, no carbohydrates. Of course, no sugar. That's a given. And once I started that, I felt better. I couldn't believe how fast. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even my mood changed, and I could tell a difference in my responses to different stressful things. I was good. I was calm. So when you talk about restoring the microbiome in the gut, that is something I hear people talk about a lot. Could you give us a little more about what you do to restore that?
Yeah. So, of course, some of the main things that can disrupt the gut microbiome is going to be stress, toxins, and of course, processed foods and sugars. So, when it comes to restoring the gut microbiome, stress is almost inevitable these days for most people. So we really want to give them tools to become more resilient to stress, right? Most people hang on to their stress for long periods of time. Things are going to happen in our life sometimes that we may or may not have full control over. But the key to a healthy stress response is how quickly we're able to bounce back from that stress. And so using the breath as a tool to help regulate our nervous system is a great way for us to become more resilient and not have the long-term impacts of stress affect things like our gut microbiome. Other things is toxins. Of course, living, in our modern day society, we are exposed to so many toxins, but then there's also toxins that we can control in our environment. So the personal care products we use, the cleaning products we use, the foods that we choose, making sure that they're organic, right? If you do eat fruits and vegetables, making sure that they're organic. If you do eat animal products, making sure that they're grass-fed, wild-caught, pasture-raised. So those things make a huge difference too, because those toxins can really disrupt the gut microbiome as well. And then lastly is, of course, I talked about the stress, I talked about toxins. And then lastly is, of course, food choices, right? So if we eat a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugars, that is going to cause certain bacteria to overgrow because we have good bacteria and bad bacteria, and it all depends on the ratios of that good versus bad bacteria. So it's normal for us to all have a small amount of quote unquote bad bacteria, and the only time it becomes a problem is when it's overgrown. And so when we feed our body lots of sugars and refined carbohydrates, that's a food source for those bad bacteria, and it's going to cause them to proliferate and therefore increase in amounts that are obviously not healthy to healthy gut microbiome. So those three things I would say are some of the top factors that will imbalance the gut microbiome.
Mm. So how do you restore it? Is there you just stop? Is there something to add then after you stop taking
Yeah.
away?
So, of course, avoiding, as you said, taking away, eliminating some of those processed foods and toxins, managing our stress. But then I don't like to jump to probiotics right away because it's not a one size fits
Mhm.
all approach. So, some natural sources of probiotics are going to be fermented foods, right? So,
Mhm.
trying to incorporate some fermented foods into our diet, if you tolerate them, right? Some people do have histamine related issues and may not tolerate fermented foods very well. But for the most part, including some fermented foods in your diet can help restore the gut microbiome, along with avoiding some of the things that I spoke about, right? Like trying to deal with becoming more resilient to stress, avoiding toxins, and some of the sugars and processed foods as well will help.
Yes, yes. Um, some carnivores don't like to eat dairy at all,
Mhm.
so yogurt is out, and yogurt's out for me too. It's got too much natural sugar in it.
Mhm.
Um, but what about there are some probiotic drinks that are clear. How do you feel about that? Does the stomach destroy the probiotics, or is that good? Good to,
Yeah, typically not. So some people will drink the brine, right? So if you do ferment pickles, for example, or cucumbers rather, in salt and water, of course, if you're eating, sometimes when I tell people they can eat pickles as a fermented foods, that doesn't mean like your conventional pickles that you buy off the grocery store that are pickled in vinegar. That's not a fermented food, right? If it's in salt and water, that is a fermented food. And so if you are buying things like pickles in brine, you can drink the brine, right? And usually that brine has the good bacteria in it as well, and it will get to the gut where it needs to go.
yes, yes, that's the kind of thing I was talking about. Before I came to Carnivore, I was interested in fermenting and the different ways to do it. So that's really interesting information that you could actually drink brine without
Mhm.
actually eating the
The
pickles
food. Yep.
themselves. Yes.
Yep.
One of the things I was wondering too is if you could give us a little demonstration about breath work to um, calm stress, because we eat because we want to calm ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. So for many people, eating, right? And I find the thing that gets people into the most trouble is the evening snacking, right? After dinner, a lot of people will eat healthy meals, but then they get into this pattern where, they finish up their meal, they clean up their kitchen, and then they sit in front of the TV and they snack. And because we're watching TV, we're consuming something with our eyes. It puts us in a natural state of consumption where we feel like we need to consume something with our mouth as well. And so, with our clients, we give them a lot of tips in terms of avoiding snacking as much as possible, especially mindless snacking, right? Many times people are not actually hungry. It's just a reactionary response to boredom, or maybe they had a hard day, or maybe they had an argument with their spouse, whatever it might be. It's kind of a way for us to soothe our emotions. And a lot of that is programmed in us from childhood, because that's what may have happened when we were children, when we were crying and upset. Our parents maybe soothed us with some ice cream or popcorn or chips or whatever it might be. So some of those patterns are actually ingrained in us from childhood. So a few things that you can do to just, number one is, when you feel the urge to snack, is just take a pause, right? I call it the power of the pause. And many times we can regulate our nerves and our stress with breathing and breath work. So, one of the most common breath work techniques is box breathing. So, box breathing is when you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds and hold for 4 seconds. And you repeat that about 5 to 10 times, right? Doesn't take too long. I know a lot of people have these smartwatches now, Apple watches, whatever it might be. They have like a mindfulness reminder that you can put on there to incorporate some of these breathing techniques. But box breathing is a great one. And then another one is the 6, 7, 8 breath. So it's inhaling for 6 seconds, holding for 7 seconds, and then exhaling for 8 seconds. And the key is lengthening the exhale, because when we lengthen the exhale, we put our body more into a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest state, where we can make better decisions, where we can really make more informed decisions. And we're really sending blood more so to the right part of the brain to make these higher level decisions, rather than being reactionary, which is the reptilian part of the brain, is very reactionary. And that's the part of the brain that gets fired up when we're in fight or flight. And for many people, they're constantly in fight or flight.
Yes. Yes. I have felt that way a lot, in my own life, always in fight or flight, and waking up, 2 o'clock in the morning, full on awake,
Mm-hmm.
which is a stress sign. Isn't that a stress sign?
Yep. Usually nighttime awakenings around that 2 to 4 a.m. Is due to a blood sugar drop. So, typically it's due to hypoglycemia, and we wake up because when our blood sugar gets too low, our body has to increase cortisol to increase blood sugar, and cortisol is our awakening hormone.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's why, a lot of people who are undergoing a lot of stress will experience these episodes of hypoglycemia because of, excessive stress. A lot of them will engage in eating habits that make their blood sugars go up and then down, and this, really drastic roller coaster, when really we want our blood sugars to stay more stable, which is, a primary reason why many people do go on the carnivore diet, because their blood sugars stay really stable.
Yes. Yes, I had that experience too, where my blood sugar would be going up and down. The 10 o'clock low
Mm-hmm.
and the 2 o'clock low,
Yep.
where and I used to be just like an alcoholic, hiding protein bars and candy bars and all this in my car, in my purse, in my office desk. I had food was hiding everywhere.
Yep. Yep. And that's because when we get this, we eat that candy bar, right? And our blood sugar goes up, but whatever goes up must come down. So the blood sugar comes crashing down. And when we become hypoglycemic, we feel tired. We're going to crave sugar because our body is hypoglycemic and needs to increase its blood sugar. So we crave sugar. So we reach for another candy bar, and then that whole cycle repeats itself. Right. So we
Yes.
are constantly in this yo-yo. We get irritable when we get hypoglycemic, we get tired, brain fog, poor sleep. So all of that is a result of the low blood sugar.
Yes, yes. And eating fat too helps to keep it pretty level. It takes longer to digest.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's going to help us feel more satiated.
Yes, right, right. Deepa, thank you so much. This has been amazing. You've given us some really good tools. So let's take a minute just now and talk about how you help people, where to find you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to share. So, um, a great thing for people to do is I offer a free book that I've written. If people go to the website www.dipasfreebook.com, and that's Dipa, Dipa, freebook.com, they can download a copy of my book where I share a lot of great insights with regards to incorporating a healthy lifestyle and nutrition into their day-to-day. Really simple tips. A lot of things we don't need to spend money on, right? Things that we already have access to within our own homes, right? So keeping things really simple and affordable. You can check the book out and get started on your healing journey.
Wow, that is awesome. The best things in life really are free.
Yep, it is true. They are.
Thank you so much for being with
Thank you
us.
for having me, Lana.
Bye-bye.
Bye.